Welcome back to the Bentonville Beacon podcast, where we're sharing stories and advice from the leaders sparking the rise of Bentonville, one of the fastest growing and most dynamic cities in the United States, nestled in the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas in the heartland of America. I'm your host, James Bell, and it's my pleasure to share the studio today with Squires and Scott Smith, who are co-founders of Altangle. Squire Smith is president, and Scott Smith is the CEO. First of all, it's a pleasure to have y'all here.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
That's mine.
Hey, let's get started by getting to know you. Will each of you take a moment to share your stories? That is, let the Bentonville Beacon audience know, who are you as individuals?
Yeah.
Kick us off.
Sure. I think in a lot of ways, I would say that my story that I want to tell is probably kind of just getting going.
Mm-hmm.
As it relates to Altangle, it probably dates back to a pretty young age. I've been pretty obsessed with creating things and writing things since I can remember. Very dyslexic and ADD, so school was pretty miserable at a younger age. So the bikes and scooters and skateboards and Home Depots and Hobby Lobbies were kind of the outlet. And then, yeah, from there, kind of fast forward, I went to LSU for 2 years. And I'd followed my high school girlfriend there at the time. She was a year older than me. She's now my wife. So yeah, now my wife. So it was worth following her there. But I did I had some aspirations at the time to go to some different schools. I looked at Arkansas really hard. A school called Belmont in Nashville. Yep. And then a couple Colorado schools. And so after a 2-year run at LSU, which I definitely don't regret at all, had a great time. We sat down and had a conversation. I said, I think I want to go do my thing. And she said, that works. I'll support it. I need to focus on physical therapy school. And I went and focused on riding bikes relentlessly for a few years out there in Gunnison. And that's obviously where the product came to mind kind of a little earlier than that. We can probably dive in a little bit more later. But from there, I graduated, got a full-time job in industrial construction. We had moved to Houston, where we've been for the past, 3+ years before moving here. And that was kind of what paid for some of the early patent development and product development before I left and kind of went full swing, which we can probably get into a little later. But that's my background. There's nothing super scholarly or professional. The professional resume is slim, but that's what kind of got me to where I'm at right now. So
yeah,
awesome.
So I'll start by saying I am the older brother. But so what Squires talked about, we really grew up outdoors. We were born and raised in Shreveport, Louisiana, and whether it was biking, camping, hiking, fishing,
sports
hunting,
in paradise.
Yeah, I mean, it was we definitely grew up outside and just loving all of it. I am much more of the type A right brain personality, and you'll see that in my finance career, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But so I went to LSU as well, graduated in finance, and then moved to Houston. My whole professional background prior to starting Altangle was in finance, started in corporate banking, then moved to investment banking and private equity. But Squires and I were really fortunate to grow up with a whole family of entrepreneurs, mom and dad, aunts, uncles, cousins, godparent. I mean, really everyone. We've been surrounded by, really lucky to be surrounded by just out of the box thinkers and problem solvers. And so this transition from the corporate world into startup and entrepreneurism has really felt very natural for me and kind of something that was always a goal.
Excellent. Well, as brothers, who would know you better than each other? Scott, will you start off by telling us something about Squires that perhaps he didn't tell us? Brag about each other a little bit. What's something he should have told us that he hasn't?
So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is his actual degree is in psychology. And so he's not a professionally trained engineer. He taught himself to draw in CAD and to design our products. And I think that not only is really impressive and really cool, but you see it in our products because it's coming directly from a user solving his own needs, and he is designing the product that works for him. It's not over-engineered. It's not overthought. It's exactly what he needs.
Wonderful. Many great startups start exactly right there. Squire, same question about Scott. What's something he should have told us?
Well, I don't know if you prepared that question, but you should have told me that, because that was killer. So thanks for the compliment there. CAD is not that hard to learn either. You have to be able to, if you think that way, it works. I think a lot of engineers would tell you that too.
Sure.
But I massively appreciate the compliment. And it was fun. For you, I think that you would probably, we talk about your type A-ness and how structured you are, well-spoken, and don't go on the kind of tangents that I do, for sure. But I think, that his rigidness and ability to hone in on specific goals and then not deviate from that, whereas I'm all over the board, which is a good thing. I think it makes for a nice combination. It's one of the reasons we make really good partners, I think. Yeah. But it's like a fierce focus on that. And we actually, this is probably something he wouldn't have said, but when we first launched, of course, it was in the midst, literally at the peak of the pandemic, the supply chain's falling apart. I'd already struggled to find manufacturing in the first place, so we had quite a bit going on. And then he gets COVID, and it just kind of seemed like it wouldn't go away. So it was what is commonly referred to now as long haul COVID. And so it lasted a really long time, and it was during the heat of it, of trying to get this product out there, trying to get the proof of concept down, get some customers behind us. And yeah, there was a tenacity there that I hadn't seen, that he probably wouldn't brag about. So I think this is a good platform for me to be able to call that out, because that was startups have their own tough time, and then you put that on top of it, and it's
you bet.
Thing, so.
I got to tell you, that says a lot about your tenacity, because I've known several startup founders who unfortunately had COVID, and in particular long COVID. Two passed away.
Yeah.
Wow. But the ones who have suffered from long COVID, man, that's some of them. They can't put together thoughts for an hour at a time a day, and so to be able to work through that is a good job.
It was it was tough. I'm really fortunate that I had my brother and the rest of my family to support me through it. So.
Yeah, and that's the key too, having folks to support you and understand what it is you're going through to the extent that they can. Right. Okay, so we have the Smith brothers.
Yeah.
The biker and the banker.
Yeah.
Looked at y'all's LinkedIn. Y'all weren't in this, it doesn't look like you have the same starting dates with Altangle. So I'm really curious, Squires, you got Scott to abandon banking and join you on a bike. So at what led to that moment? And I think we've heard why you started Altangle, but if you want to give a little more color to that, that's great too.
So we very much started Altangle together. It probably dates back further, because when I was working industrial construction, they wanted, basically I was going to have to move to Alabama to keep working that job. I was not exactly sure how I was going to proceed with the hangar. I had some early options we were looking at, like a licensing deal with it. I think the way the hangar came about was pretty organic. Like I was racing, and I built this product, and me and my teammates were using it, and that was kind of that. And then I went from there, and we had a great friend at a machine shop in Shreveport that helped me very much legitimize it. That's where I started picking up CAD and learning design. And it kind of went from there to a point where it's like, all right, I've got this product now. What am I doing with it? So it wasn't like, hey, I want to make a product and form a company around it. It sort of came into that self. So the short version, actually, I guess I'm giving the long version, but I jumped ship a little quicker than anticipated from that job, because I didn't want to move to Alabama. And my ADD is kicking in. So can you remind me of the initial question so that I make sure that I answer it?
Sure. Why not? I was asking, about Scott abandoning the world of banking, and what led to the moment.
You got me back on track. Thank you.
Yeah,
so
no problem.
At that point, I was exploring manufacturing. I was getting the product dialed in for what I thought would be ready for market. Basically MVP, and getting that patent dialed. And so that was where I was at. I left the job. I continued to hone that in, and that's when those conversations started. So that was 2020 during the pandemic.
Yeah. And I'd say about that time that I had always been kind of helping, was obviously aware and doing what I could. It was around that he started coming to me and saying, hey, we've got this really cool product. I mean, we know it serves a purpose. We can make it for a cost that works. What do we do with it? And that's when I really started helping, and we started putting together a business plan. And the more we looked at the market and the space around the first product, the hanger, we started feeling like the opportunity was bigger than just a single product. I mean, there was this gap in the market that we felt like could really benefit from both the product and then a company coming in and really applying like just some modern business trends. And so that's when we kind of started to think, hey, we really might want to stand a company up around this first product and kind of continue this and see where this takes us.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's talk about Altangle then. What is the company's mission and sort of its goals? And then the other two parts of the question, I guess, are what problems did you set out to solve first? That sounds like it led to the hanger. So talk about your products as well.
Yeah. So I'll kind of kick that off, then you can get into the products.
Please,
but so simply put, our mission is to make high quality, innovative products that help solve common obstacles associated with owning and maintaining a bicycle. So we ultimately want to have a full product line that at its core just helps people enjoy cycling and all things cycling related to their fullest extent.
As far as the product side goes, I think for me, there was kind of two sides of it. There's like very much the actual need, or as I often say, like the necessity portion, which what I saw was missing was a compact bike stand. And there's numerous benefits to that. Travel being a big one, and then just your living space, right? Like if you don't have the perfect garage mechanic set up, then the tripod stand is a pretty large space consuming thing to own. And so that's the really basic side of it. And that had a place, that there was a hole in the market there, and that's shown. And then there's kind of, for me, there's a side of it that's what all of our products are geared towards, which is the more mainstream side of maintenance. Like cycling is getting bigger and bigger. Obviously, we saw a ton of growth over the pandemic, but it was already headed in that direction. So more people have nice bikes, more people are considering it a primary hobby. And so, your interest when you get into a hobby, it's kind of like if you've ever met a fly fisherman, right? They start fly fishing and they get so obsessed with it, but they can't fly fish all the time. So they start tying flies, or at some point you take that hobby to the next level. And so, in my opinion, that's maintenance or tinkering or whatever it may be. You finish your ride and you're with your buddies, or you're not, and you've got some time to play with your bike. Maybe you're having a beer and shifting through the gears, or just lubing the chain. Some of these simple things, but you're all in on your hobby, you're all in on your sport, and you don't have to be a full-on mechanic swapping your bottom bracket to have some way to conveniently maintain your bike. And so that's kind of the bigger picture. Is at the end of the day, if you've got a bike pump and a multi-tool, we think you should have a hanger, either a Connect or our original doorway one.
Okay, very cool. Well, I have to ask also, you learned CAD. You were fortunate enough to have a friend who had a machine shop. Boy, that's a real starting point in my experience. It's hard to have either of those starting off when you don't have an engineering background. Yeah. You have some beautiful products I looked at on your page and that I saw at the Plug and Play Outdoor Summit. Will you take us sort of from idea to reality and talk about the iterative process of creating the hanger and what that was like and what challenges you ran into? And you can even go further and talk about manufacturing then.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Tell the story of the race. Start there and kind of run it all the way, because I think that's worth sharing. Yeah.
We were talking about this the other day, actually, and we were kind of joking around, like, man, we probably should like market that a little more, because there actually was sort of an aha moment on the idea itself. And it's pretty simple. Like, since the time I was at LSU and I was riding, living with roommates, it's like every cyclist has done this. I was hanging the bike up on shower curtains or bookshelves or whatever you could suspend it on to work through, and like I was ripping things down and putting holes in walls, whatever. And so I was like, there's got to be like some other option besides a big bike stand. I was even working in a shop at that time, and so that's kind of when the initial thought came to mind, and I didn't know if there was a big need for it or not. And so if you fast forward to my time at Western, the defining moment that he's talking about, although I'd kind of thought of this concept of a smaller way to work on your bike more efficiently, is we all piled into a car, made the decision not to bring a bike stand, and had just gotten to the race. Almost always, you don't touch your bike before a race, but I needed to because we had to break ours down to go in the car. And basically, my buddy's holding it up for me, and he's like, "Come on, man, hurry up! Like my arms are getting tired." And so I did something quicker than I should have, and I get to the start line.
Oh no!
And it's like 5 minutes in, I didn't put a cable end on the housing, and I just, when I shifted, it sucked my cable straight into the frame of the bike, and it was basically, my race was over. Lost all tension, and I couldn't shift. And so I was so frustrated with it. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, we've got to have an efficient way to get this done. And so went back and a couple beers later and some PVC pipe, and we had the first iteration of the hanger.
Awesome.
So that would be the story he's talking about. I think I can give a faster version of where it went from PVC, but what you're talking about in regard to understanding the manufacturing side of things and then the design side of things, you're right, it is vastly different. And luckily, I wasn't on like a huge time constraint because I didn't know what I was doing with the product. So I was really developing this product. I don't really know at the time. I'm not sure why I was doing it. I just wanted to. It's the same reason I've always created things, and why a lot of makers do that. And so for a year, I was just tinkering and learning and figuring out what processes worked best and how honestly a CNC machine even worked. Started to figure out the importance of tolerance and how badly that can mess up your product if it's wrong. And so that was a bunch of trial and error. And fortunately, I had that friend that was willing to walk me through that trial and error. And yeah, I mean, at some point, I think the machine shop that I was working with dealt very heavily with like oil field parts. And so their engineer, I was giving him all the dimensions and things that I wanted, and he was designing the early parts for me, or side by side.
Sure. And
so those were functional, but they were not very aesthetically pleasing. And so as I wanted things tweaked, or I wanted things, the way that I wanted them designed, I couldn't continue asking this engineer I wasn't paying to do this stuff, right? And so that's when I said, okay, you're gonna have to teach me some of this CAD work and get me started. And then once you get started, it's a pretty fluid learning process. It's just about spending time on it. And so from there, I was just tweaking it to the specs that I wanted it to be. And
I mean, it was like a year and a half of us going and riding, and we'd come home and put it up and use it and be like, you know what, this doesn't work quite like you do. And you back to the labs and make a new one, tweak it, do whatever. Yeah,
I was listening to one of your podcasts not long ago, and you mentioned the MVP thing, and it's so true. Like, I think any inventor, business owner, entrepreneur would agree and tell you that whatever they did, they could have done earlier. They could have started earlier.
Right.
I absolutely should have rolled everything out sooner. But we didn't really know what our goal was with it. So we did kind of have the luxury of, certainly I still rolled it out thinking, oh my gosh, there's things I want to change about this. So it was still MVP to me, but we did have the luxury of having like a year of kind of getting to make it. If you look at my first video, you'll see the first very raw version, and we had a lot of time to
being our own customers, our own users.
Make it better than that. But other than that, if you fast forward to making the first batch, so when we launched, we had everything lined up in Taiwan to manufacture, and that was when the pandemic went into full swing. And so that totally shut us down, unfortunately. And we couldn't get any material. We couldn't get raw material to make it. And so we'd both already quit our jobs.
So we had to do it.
Good timing.
So, it was
we were in.
kind of time to go. And so we decided to make the first batch in the US, which was not very cost effective, but it did get the product out there. That had a silver lining. Most of that process was not fantastic. Contract manufacturing in the U.S. is really difficult, as we kind of discussed before this. In-house is different, but yeah, it's not quite set up the same as overseas. You know, it's not as turnkey. And so yeah, we made the first small batch here in the U.S. Right outside of Houston, and that was really where I learned the most about manufacturing, because we had some early parts come off the machine way out of whack. And it basically ended up requiring, I mean, I pretty much lived at this machine shop for like a month, because I just needed to be there playing QC. Otherwise everything would come off a little different than I was hoping it would. But that is where I learned, like, okay, this could make a huge difference if we cut out this part on the machine, or if we change this part so that we're not having to flip it over 3 times. You know, things that you're not going to think about if you don't truly understand the entire process. And so that really changed how we were able to instruct our Taiwan manufacturer on the different processes we wanted to use to get this made. And that was pretty crucial, considering we couldn't even go to Taiwan at the time due to the pandemic. So to have seen where the little hiccups can come into play, and all these little small details that matter, and be able to take note of that and be able to relay that to our Taiwan manufacturer, I know is what has given us such a high success rate in regard to the quality of our products today.
Agree.
So
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it was almost beneficial then that you had to manufacture in the U.S. and having had to build some things myself, or have third-party manufacturers build them, found the same thing. Like the ability to reach out and touch that manufacturer at the earliest stage is a big deal. I'll add that, you know, everything that you do in a startup does not have to be scalable at the beginning.
Right.
You just have to be able to convert to scalable.
Couldn't agree more.
And so that cost of manufacturing in the U.S. is not necessarily a bad thing at the earliest stage.
Yeah. It's
going to cost you some time.
Right. That's not even, that's exactly how we looked at it. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I think we started thinking like and I think a lot of founders probably do this, but like if we do something today, it has to be able to grow. And you very quickly realize that, well, that's just not realistic right now.
Not at all.
And so we just evolved in the nature we had to evolve. And I mean, he was literally running machines in some scenarios. And
we got 3 days before our pre-order products were supposed to ship, which were not that many. So it wouldn't have been that crucial how we had to postpone. But we had like 300 tubes come off out of tolerance. And I'm like, we have to redo these. And he's like, well, I already discontinued the night shift. And that's who was doing them. And it's like, well, we got 3 days to redo them before, we got to send these out to the whopping 25 pre-orders or 50 pre-orders or whatever we had. And so, I ended up being the owner of the machine shop, pretty much just worked all night for 3 days.
And what you learned from all that, a month later, when we're talking to Taiwan, the way he's able to communicate and talk very specifically about these machines. So we didn't really know how it was scalable when we were going through it, but it turns out it actually was, because now we're able to take this, talk this lingo that we did not know. He did not know a month prior. And it resulted, on our first batch, we had a less than 1% error rate or something. It was quarter of a percent less. So
Yeah. In some ways you went through the process. I don't know what the technical name of it's called, but I call it optimization for manufacturing.
DFM.
DFM. There we go. Perfect. And then got to learn the language, which was, that's great. And I wish I would have had the benefit of that part.
Crash course.
Absolutely. Well, these represent challenges. What are you most proud of that you've accomplished to date with Altangle?
Yeah.
Great question.
Proud of a lot right now.
We've
got some really exciting stuff happening right now, but I guess in some ways also I feel like it's the first time I've picked my head up in the past year where I've been able to look back on the last year. And so I would focus on what I guess the prior accomplishments, and I think honestly just getting a product to market during the pandemic was that's probably I'm incredibly proud of that. There was some. We had a time, there were so many little hurdles to jump over, and so many people did it too. It's not like, I'm not trying to make ourselves sound special, but for me, that's what I was proud of, And we went, we went back to him. I think I was probably like borderline in tears because we had already made the first batch in the US, and now he's like, it's going to be another 6 months or whatever. I'm like, what? And it was raw material. And so I'm like, are you telling me there's nothing? He's like, there's nothing. And he's kind of getting frustrated with me. He's like, look, y'all are great and all, but you don't make half as much as my other customers. You know, it's kind of what he's politely trying to tell me. I'm saying, but come on, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And he's like, there's not. You can't get material. So is there not like a Home Depot for metal? And he's like, pauses for a second. We're on FaceTime. He's like, well, you mean Metal Mart? I was like, yeah. Is there a Metal Mart? He's like, yeah, there's a Metal Mart. Yeah. I said, okay, go to the Metal Mart and buy all the aluminum we can buy, and we'll make them that way. And he like looks at me like I'm crazy, and he said, okay, I'll look into it. And he calls me back 3 days later, and he says, this is how much the aluminum costs. You know, it's probably 3 times the amount that raw material would have been had we ordered it the proper way. But again, it got us our next batch, and we got there.
There's nothing more painful than waiting 6 months. I actually had one time with one of my startups, we had a item that came from China. Actually, it was the casters, the wheels on the bottom of the product, that took months to get to us.
Yep.
Had to be shipped because they're very heavy. And then they arrived, and the company, had ordered the wrong ones.
Oh, no.
And now we had a customer waiting.
Yeah.
It was a Cleveland clinic waiting for us to deliver a product to them. And we ended up overnighting casters from China.
Yeah. Jeez.
We didn't make a darn thing off that.
Yep, we did. We air freighted our first batch.
Well, you know, I think on that note, like that, what I would add to that answer, like one of the things I'm most proud of is that this company, our goal that was always to be a end user focused company. I mean, it was about our customers' experience and making sure that they got a high quality product and a product they enjoyed, and that we as founders remained close to them. And I think not the biggest probably gap before all this was marketing for us. Neither of us had a background in it. And so we didn't know how to build a company that could grow and reach a lot of people directly while remaining close to them. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that so far. I feel like,
we're on a good track for that.
Just like the feedback has been really positive, and it's been really fun, and it's something we're really proud of that we've stayed that close to the end user.
Yep.
Cool. Glad to hear that. Well, you've had some big news lately. A few months ago, you relocated to Bentonville.
Yeah.
So welcome home.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, will you talk about that? Start with, I've got 3 questions I wrote down here. Start with, well, you talked about where you moved here from, so we have 2 questions. Talk about how you discovered Bentonville and your experiences here, and then how that led you to decide that Altangle had to be part of the Bentonville family.
Yeah. All right. That's pretty easy one.
Yeah.
I'll start with just how we got here. I'll let you give a more clear, concise answer on some of the specifics. But basically, I mean, I knew what was going on here to some degree. Okay. I hadn't visited though, which, as you've probably heard a lot of times, it makes all the difference when you actually see it, when you put eyes on it. But I'd heard about it. I'd mentioned it to my wife, Kat, because Houston was never the end goal for us. We were looking at Colorado, we were checking out Oregon, California, but Colorado more seriously.
Obvious places.
Yeah. And I'm like, but I mean, I said, Arkansas is really coming up. And there was a time where she's like, I'll never move to Arkansas. I was like, okay. So I kind of was like, all right, well, I guess that's not that serious. And her sister just moved to Denver. So I was like, all right, I guess that's not a thing. And so we were in California, and Gary Vernon rolls up to our tent and hands me a beanie. He says, this is an awesome product. So, thanks. And introduces himself. And it's like probably 3 sentences in. So how do we get you to Bentonville? I'm like, I was like, I don't know. I didn't really know.
Never gotten that question before.
I didn't really know that cities recruited people. I didn't know that was a thing. And so he gives me a little download on what's happening. And I said, yeah, no, it's been on our radar. It's a cool spot. I do need to come see it. So I came up for Rule 3. I was going to expo there, and then it ended up being really rainy, and I decided to race it instead, which was really fun. And I was supposed to be there for 2 days, and yet again, Gary showed me around. We went on a little gravel ride, and I ended up staying for 9 days because I said this is awesome, and I got to figure out what else this place is about. Went around town kind of interviewing random people, figuring out if it was real. It felt like this incredible little bubble of bikes and entrepreneurs and this, like almost like a startup city and so I'm literally like walking around, like asking people like, hey, how do you like it here? Right. And I had my wife come up that weekend and she checked it out. She's like, okay, I'll move to Arkansas.
Yeah. So once we got the sign off on the home front, I think we started looking at, again, just like being close to the end user, being close to the customer. And not only was Bentonville this mecca and hub of cycling, but business in general. So we saw this opportunity just to be constantly surrounded with industry events, with business events, and just living that lifestyle like a day in and day out. And it made so much economic sense, so much business. I mean, just from every angle, it was like, this is just an easy fit.
Yeah. And you can see it too, like everything happening here. Like I saw it literally the first weekend I was here is so incredibly intentional.
Yeah.
And so when you see a city that's growing really quickly and then the intention behind that growth, it inspires a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, you're coming into something where you can see the end goal and then there's also opportunity right now to be a part of the end goal.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself, I think is really exciting for us is, our goal is to be a omni-channel company, but with a really large e-commerce presence.
Yeah.
Right. I guess the best way to put it. And so we want the home base, and then there's ample other opportunities here on an entrepreneurial level to get involved, so.
Yeah, it is such a neat time to be here because not only can you do your amazing thing, you can be part of this much bigger story.
Right. Yep.
And like you said, it becomes very evident what's happening here when you get your feet on the ground.
Yep.
You couldn't do any better than to encounter Gary Vernon.
Yeah. Right. Yep. He was the right guy for sure.
Who, by the way, has been on the show. So I encourage the listeners to go back and check out that awesome episode.
Yep.
We talked Oz Trails and the whole 9 yards. So you haven't been here that long, but you were tapping into our resources and entrepreneur support organizations and the industry before you got here. Can you tell me about that? And, were you surprised that you had this opportunity to really connect and tap into these opportunities even before you got here, the way people embraced you perhaps?
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yes.
I think we were both, I was telling Scotty when I got back, I said, I've got 3 contacts we can reach out to about moving here,
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, yeah, let's reach out. And
I think what's surprising, it's not surprising to come across one great consulting group or one great state group or one great private organization. What's surprising is that they're all working together in coordination on the same agenda, and every one of them is as excited to connect you to the next one as the last one was. I mean, they just want to keep it going all the time. And so every conversation, whether it has a direct benefit or not, is leading to something new and exciting.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of time until one of those is the right fit. And so not only did that work in recruiting, you get here, now you want to be a part of that, right? I mean, it's a culture, it's a mindset, and you want to pay that forward. And I think that's what's so surprising. And intentionality is a good word for it. But yeah, the coordinated effort is, I've never seen anything like it. I don't know. Maybe it exists somewhere, but I'm certainly not aware of it.
Very cool. That brings up it's just, as you said that, it made me think about one of the things that we encourage founders to do over and over again is just keep talking to people, talking to people. It's going to open the doors for you. But it's like banging your head against the wall, right? You talk to so many people as a founder, and the vast majority of those conversations in other places, it seems to lead to nowhere. But you're right. Here it's, you talk to one person and here's 3 more, and they give you 3 more. And it just keeps happening. There's a lot of high value organizations and people here in terms of folks who are helping.
Yeah. And I think as a founder, you kind of have to be up for that ride.
Yeah.
It's just sort of the nature of the game. It does help that in this environment, your time between finding the one that's really helpful is a little shorter.
Exactly. You have to go fast as a founder. And if you want to go lightning fast, come on.
Yeah.
Just looking at my notes here a second, I know of y'all from others. Gary, I think, was one of the first people to actually mention Altangle to me. So knew about you from others in the ecosystem, and then finally first met you at the Plug and Play Outdoor Summit in, I guess it was in the fall.
Yeah.
And, you know, other than perhaps trade shows, have you encountered other, especially in the outdoor rec space, have you encountered other outdoor rec sort of industry events that were super focused on the entrepreneurs like that one?
Not quite like that. I think we've been fortunate to, and actually it's funny. So that event was the day after we moved here. So
yeah, I remember
we were laughing about, and that's kind of like what I want. My point here is, so I think that was a really cool, unique event. We have been fortunate to get invited to some other things that, you know, there was a founder or two featured or whatever, and those are all great. But I think what's like the most interesting is that was an event in Bentonville. It was a great event, and we were really excited to be a part of it. But I mean, we've done like 2 or 3 more since getting here. There are a lot of cities or organizations that would be proud, as they well should be, to put on one of those a year. And that was like that month, right? I mean, those are just happening all the time. And that's what's like so incredible, is that it's one of a great series and multiple events that are happening. So
yeah, I think it's very surprising to people.
Yes.
When they discover that here. You've experienced our trails, overall community, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, you know, as folks who have made the move and taken the risk of moving your company here. And you named some of them, but could you talk more broadly about the benefits you see of having a company like yours in this ecosystem?
Sure.
Yeah. I think you can go there on a few different levels, right? I'm going to go to the most obvious one, which is when I said earlier that I feel like I just kind of picked my head up after, like, for the first time in at least a year, probably a little more than that, or kind of just came up for air. What I mean is finding balance between, you know, startup, and anybody really can relate to this. It doesn't matter what your job is, if it's a startup or not. It may feel a little intensified at the moment, but just it's really easy to bury yourself in your work, and Bentonville has a really good way of keeping you focused but balanced, and I think that carries over into a lot of different environments and industries here. I mean, almost everyone's taking a lunch break and maybe going out for a quick ride, or if it's a beautiful day, you notice that a lot of people are headed out around 3, and they're probably getting to work early the next day and grinding just like everybody else is. But there's a beautiful balance there, and it's been great for our lifestyle. My wife and I have been trail running more together, so I'm not just riding bikes these days, although still 99%, but trying to switch it up. So yeah, the work-life balance is huge. The network is huge, and so I think between those two, the other thing I guess would be when you're getting here. So I see a huge benefit to getting here now. Like I said, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be here early. And then what it's developing into is, to me, it's kind of this Wall Street of the outdoor world, and a lot of other cool things coming together. I think probably we'll see more tech startups and whatnot in the future. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, if you can be in that environment in such a condensed area with this much enthusiasm, there's some serious benefits there.
I think, I want to add to that, because I love that answer. And the part that jumps out to me is we talk about the exposure and everything, but what he mentioned about the work-life balance and it being normal to get on the trail. I mean, Squires and I are people that have, for our entire lives, done some of our best thinking outside of a conventional workspace, not in front of a desk. Yeah, for sure. And it's really nice to be in an environment where that is more the norm than like, oh, look at those guys, that's kind of weird, right? And so I really appreciate, because I truly do believe that that's where like some of your hardest problems get solved, is when you take a step back and go do something fun and free your mind up to think about that kind of thing. And it's why you're seeing some of these great ideas come to fruition here. Yeah,
I love just sometimes just walking out and taking a walk, right?
Yep.
The Razorback Greenway runs right behind our office. If I wanted to, if I rode my bike more often, and I should, I could just hop on it and get over to downtown a few hundred feet away and hop on All American, maybe get a little ride in at lunch and get back and start my next thing, or go have a meeting on a trail.
Right.
Sure.
That's a real thing here.
It is indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There you go. Squires, I have to ask, you went to school at Western Colorado University, kind of some beautiful place.
Yeah.
You mentioned Colorado and Oregon and California as places that you looked at also. Why not there? Why is it just that encounter with Gary that got you here, or is there more? Why not there versus a place like this?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons for me, and in general, I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. I love Colorado. Always will love Colorado. It's gorgeous. But yeah, I mean, for the purpose of this conversation and the fact that I see ourselves here for probably good, that decision came down to the fact that, like, there's kind of, I would say it's two-part. It's personal and there's the business side. And one is that it's going to be pretty hard to stand out there. Like, when you first asked us to be on the podcast, my thought was, that's cool. Like, that's early, I mean, we're still getting this story is just starting for us. Like, in my opinion, we're just kicking things off. But that's why we have the opportunity to do this, and it's cool. It's still valuable to get this conversation, to share it with others. And so you're not really going to be seen in Colorado either. And so there'd be a great lifestyle reason for going there, but not a whole lot of. There wasn't going to be a lot of advantage of going there as a startup.
I think it's a difference in, like you said this to me, it's a difference in being a part of the story and getting to help write the story.
Yeah. You're right. I did say that. Thank you for reiterating.
I thought that was well explained.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm writing that down. I might use that in the discussion with a few folks.
Yeah. So feel free.
Perhaps very soon.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's very good. You were coming to Bentonville before you moved here.
Yeah.
Now that you're here, have you had the opportunity to really get outside of Bentonville, check out some of the Ozark Mountains and other areas of our region?
I'm working on it. I have, but not as much as I would like to. We've been pretty dang busy since we've gotten here.
Not to mention what's in the backyard is so incredible. We've barely gotten to enjoy that. So
yeah, I mean, it's only a couple of months, right? So
yeah,
that's the thing is the amount of trails that are here in a condensed area. Like, I end up riding the same ones a lot too because they're great. So I need to be very intentional about checking some boxes. Like, I've probably only ridden 10% of trails just in the Slaughter Pen network, But yeah, I have gotten out. I mean, I did a huge ride, I spent more time in my office chair lately, so it was huge for me, but it was the High in the Ozarks route. And it was gorgeous. I mean, it was amazing. That's 30 minutes from here.
Yeah.
And it does, you're in the mountains. I used to laugh a little bit when my friends in Arkansas would call it mountains. It is mountains. So
yeah,
I can attest to that
legit.
now.
Yeah.
Yep, they are legit.
And I think this coming spring and summer, it'll be a big focus for us to explore a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that.
We're going to get out.
That's cool. The state of Arkansas has a passport for state parks. There's 52 state parks in the state. I was just thinking maybe here in Northwest Arkansas, we should have a trails passport.
Yeah.
And you can validate it with
cool.
Strava or something, right?
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
I like that idea.
Yeah. I know you, before we start winding this down, tell me a story. And you can have one story or tell me two. And this is what I like to call a hashtag because Bentonville story. It is, maybe a moment or a full-blown story that could only happen here or describes the essence of this place.
All right. I've got actually the perfect one because it came to mind earlier when we were talking about moving here.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened, I guess it technically happened before I got here. But so in Houston, the housing market is very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
It's becoming competitive here, especially just right around the square. There's ample opportunity right outside the square as well. But where we visited was right around the square. And so we said that for the first year, that's where we want to be because we know we love that and we haven't explored anywhere else because we moved here after visiting once. But so this house comes up and this is like a month after we visited. We decided to apply immediately because, we saw the competition in the space. And I get on a call with the owner of it and what I'm used to is like being interrogated. And, you know, they want the background check and the financials, which is all reasonable when you're renting out your home. And this guy's like, so what are you looking to move to Bentonville for? Well, you know, lifestyle. I've got a company in the cycling industry. He's like, oh, sweet, I ride, you know? And so we start just like shooting the breeze on mountain bikes and trails. And like, we didn't even really talk about the house, my job, wife's job, things that would, you know, maybe let us pay for the house.
Sure.
Things that like, we're just talking about lifestyle. And he's suddenly like, man, I mean, there are so many entrepreneurial opportunities here. And I think if you're considering Bentonville, the house was 3 months from being available. He's like, I mean, I just don't look any further. You just need to do it. You won't regret it. So, I mean, it was supposed to be almost like a kind of an interview on whether I could be in the house, and he's selling me on it and said, so his name's Mark Kinsley, and great guy. We just got lunch with him yesterday. And I'm like, well, okay, Mark, that's awesome. So, I mean, the house is he's like, oh yeah, I know. House is yours. Seemed like a totally normal guy. Would love to have you. House is yours if you want it. I'll just go ahead and hold it. You know, talk to your wife. Let me know what works. I'm like, that is incredibly casual. Like, sounds good. You know, so it just sold me on the whole atmosphere of this place. I'm like, that's wild.
That's the culture of this place. Yeah. It's really what you get, and it's because it's in our DNA, but it's the way this place has been built so intentionally to sort of just allow for you to live a lifestyle that allows for that sort of comfortableness.
Yep.
I guess, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's take a short side trail for a moment. Got a few questions for you. Scott, how's your background as a banker helped you with the startup?
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about this a lot. I think there are two big ways that come to mind. First, I mean, for a young company, understanding the capital stack and then cash flow is just, it's so critical. And so, you know, all the years in finance really gave me a good perspective on that. And having been in kind of multiple different layers of the capital stack, I feel like I have a good perspective on that. I'd say the second thing is, and this is probably comes in handy more on a day-to-day basis, being in finance, you know, you're talking to different customers in different industries, dealing with different problems. You have to get really good at educating yourself quickly on a situation or a different market or whatever it is. And so, like, while the problems that Squires and I are addressing now are different than the problems we were working on then, like, you develop this framework for addressing issues and working through things and getting educated very quickly. And you're fairly used to operating in an environment of being a little bit uncomfortable. And really that's kind of how I love to work now. Like, always a little bit uncomfortable, always pushing yourself a little bit, always learning that next thing. And yeah, so I feel like just my day-to-day like kind of life as an entrepreneur, like, you could never describe a normal week, right? I mean, it's always something new and different. And I don't think you can totally prepare for that until you're doing it, but just working in the financial industry, I think, put me in a decent position to do that. So.
Very cool. I love the whole concept of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In fact, every time I find myself comfortable, that's when I get uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm uncomfortable that I'm not uncomfortable because that's a sign of not growing.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Can relate to that.
Squires, I feel like, you know, the question I wrote down, you've already talked about a good bit, but you know, looking at it through the lens of the inventor, and then bringing on, you know, Scott, I guess, really back into the team full time.
Yeah.
How is that as an inventor saying, here's my baby, but I want your business leadership here to help me out? How does that help you?
Yeah, it's helpful in a lot of ways. I think I look at it, we both probably look at it much more as a partnership. There's not a lot of inventors out there. Well, there's not a lot of inventor and founders out there that have the luxury of just being an inventor. And as much as I like creating things and working on things, that's not my only skill set or what I enjoy. And so, you know, it's also, you need a vision for that product, right? I mean, thinking up a product, One of ours is very simple. It's 2 clamps, you know,
Yeah.
and it's how you use those 2 clamps that matters. And then the vision you have for that, and then how you portray that vision to others and how you reach those people. Pick a group and get them sold on it. Get everybody waving their hands in the air, right? And then the next guy will. And so what I think I'm going to go with this question where I think is how you meant it in regard to like our differences kind of, but where we really complement each other is that we have such different ways of operating and thinking. I mean, I am off the walls ADHD all over the place, called him at 2 a.m. Hey, we need to do this. And he's like I said, fiercely in one direction. But so he'll take that, go, okay, let's definitely sleep on it, you know, and let's talk over that. And he'll break it down and say, okay, so I think this is what you were thinking, and maybe this is how we'd implement it. And this might be the timeline that we implement that in, you know? And I'm like, okay, well, let's speed it up a little bit. And then we go back and forth a little bit, but we balance each other really well. And then there's areas like creating and like finance where we're polar opposites, and we both do those tasks separately. So a lot of the other stuff we collaborate on.
I think people ask me like, oh, how do you work with your brother? I could never do that. Like, I can work with them because we're so different.
Yeah.
And I think we have a pretty good sense of what our lane is and then staying in our lane. And that's not always, I think people assume like, oh, you have the business background, you're the business guy, you have the inventor background, you're the inventor. It's really not quite that straightforward.
That's right.
There are aspects of business that are in my wheelhouse. There are aspects that are in his wheelhouse. And what we had to do early on, the most important thing that we had to do, and fortunately we had 27 years to start doing this previously, but trust each other. And so when I know something is in Squires' lane, whether it's business related, product related, doesn't matter. If I know that that's up his alley, what he says goes.
Yeah.
I trust him completely, and we go with that.
And same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say we have an appropriate level of pushback.
Yeah.
You know, like I might still ask a question on a financial decision or some numbers or projections
to make
that he
sure
ran.
we thought everything through all the way.
To punch holes in it, to try to punch holes in it, because that's what we're there to do, and he'd do the same. But yeah, at the end of the day, if it's there, then yeah, that's how we operate.
That is some great advice for other founders. Is if you don't trust your co-founder, you shouldn't be co-founders for starters.
Stop what
there,
you're doing.
or stop there, not even start there, right? But when you have trust, you can be in a place where you can challenge each other.
Yeah,
for sure. You said too. So I mean, that trust is a starting and a stopping point for co-founders, and I think that's the advice there,
and everything in between.
Absolutely. All right, coming back to our main trail, sort of closing in on the end of the ride. Just a few quick questions. Number one, what's next for Altangle?
Ooh, great question. So, I mean, really what's always next is just continuing to grow in a responsible and sustainable manner. I think 2022 for us was in large part really product focused. We had to do a lot of work to get the design and our margins where we wanted them to be. Now that we've achieved that, we are able to dedicate a lot of our time and budget to marketing and getting our name out there. So we've been really fortunate that that's pretty quickly resulted in very strong demand for the products. And so I think over the next few months, we're getting relatively close to maxing out our manufacturing capacity. So that's a really great problem that we're going to be addressing. And then again, kind of coming back to this being about the customer, one of our goals was always to make sure our customers were forming a community. I mean, we really want to put like-minded people who enjoy this sport together, whether that's in Bentonville or on a virtual platform or, wherever else. And so, kind of developing that group in a place that they can interact. We want to do that sooner than later.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that can sound cliche, like developing that, what did you say?
Community.
Yeah, developing that community.
It's a great buzzword.
But what's neat about this niche product, which as we were starting this, wow, that's really niche. They almost say it like too niche, but is that it's really not that small of a group, but it's perfectly niche because the people that are into this product are really into their bikes.
Sure.
And they want to talk about that. I want to talk about that with them. Like I get pictures sent to me that's like, look at this bike I just built up, or here's how I used your product to service this fork or whatever. And yeah, like I nerd out about it. Like I want them to send it. I want to look at it and I look forward to responding to it. Sometimes it takes a little bit, a few days to get responded or whatever, but I enjoy the fact that community very much is existing. Because it's a bunch of people that geek out about bikes.
A lot of our customers, and we actually anticipated this, so we're really excited to see it, but a lot of our customers have really never considered buying a bike stand. They didn't think that they were someone who would buy a bike stand. For whatever reason, they were living in a space confined environment, whatever it was. And so we're kind of finding this group of people who are like almost getting into like a portion of their hobby that they didn't necessarily think was going to be for them. So like we want to share that excitement. We want to give them a place to communicate and like learn how to use the product to its fullest, like learn new stuff about their bike. And it's a fun part of all this.
So cool. Hey, how can our audience help you be successful?
Besides buying the products?
That's one way.
Talk about them.
Spread the word. We like people who like bikes. And so we love meeting them, talking to them. If our products are the right fit for you, fantastic. If not, no worries. We'll do what we can. We'll grab a coffee, grab a beer, whatever. So.
Yeah. On this podcast, especially for our local audience, there's probably 10 folks out, for every person you talk with, 10 or 20 folks that they know that probably could use your product, 100%. If not more around here.
Yeah.
Okay. A very important question then. If somebody wants to reach you or learn more about Altangle, how do they do that?
Website's probably the best place to start, altangle.cycling.com. We're available via email, info@altangle.cycling.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, got a little chat bot that goes straight to us. We're pretty accessible, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get in touch.
Yeah, if you're talking to someone on the social platforms or the website or an email, you're talking to Squires and I.
Yeah,
Nice.
So my name is actually John Squires Smith. So my name's John Smith. And so our info account is under John Smith. And so I'm emailing with people and it's like if they know my name, which I don't know that they do or not, but they're thinking it's just John Smith. I'm like, well, it's me. So if you're emailing with John Smith, you've got Squires. Yeah.
Or they're thinking you got some cool AI tool because it's John Smith.
Really.
Now, that's the other thing. It's just the Google go-to.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, one last question. What's something I should have asked you that I did not ask?
Well, most people ask what the next products will be.
What will the next products be?
Yeah. So we've got a lot in the works. So Squires can talk about some of this. I'm going to advise. There's a couple of things we're going to keep close to the chest for now.
Sure.
But there's a few things that we'll roll out pretty soon. One of the things we like so much about the Hanger and the Hanger Connect is we can sell ancillary products that give the current products more functionality, and we'll be able to sell those products at a fairly low price point. So whether it be a wall mount, something we're calling the wall mount would be for permanent storage, something we're calling a Pro Bar that would give it like length extension and probly more
360 degrees rotation.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Probably do a carrying case and like a little tool sleeve. But the whole point here is these are going to make the product and kind of the whole system more cost efficient for our customers. So you make the one investment in the product, and then you add these like smaller items that fulfill other obstacles for you, and hopefully it just becomes increasingly useful for our customers.
Yep.
And then
we'll see. We've got a pretty one I'm very excited about. I'm hoping to roll it out probably at Sea Otter Classic this year, but probably gonna keep it close to the chest until then.
Okay.
But that would be a bigger one. So for now, I'll focus on the ancillary products, things that'll add to the Connect. This one in some ways would as well, but the idea is to kind of build this Swiss Army knife system and keep everything very consumer facing and user friendly and fun.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, you asked how customers can help. We love hearing from customers and just hearing what they're thinking
for sure.
and what they want. What's helpful for them.
Yep.
So we love having those conversations.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Squires. Scott, thank you all so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed hearing your stories and about your company and some advice that you were able to provide to the audience. But yeah, thank you and welcome home.
Yeah, likewise.
sure.
We appreciate you having us.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Hey, you bet. Thanks. Hey, thanks to our Bentonville Beacon audience. As always, keep coming back to this podcast to hear about Bentonville's leaders, the businesses that are sparking the rise of Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas, so that you can be in this place where you get more of what you want, less of what you don't. As always, visit our website, BentonvilleEconomicDevelopment.com, to see all the episodes of our podcast, and of course, hit subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Thanks. See you next time.